All right. All right, simmer down, simmer down. So, how's everybody today?
Tired.
Tired? Yeah. Long weekend?
No, I ran here.
Oh, well. Yes, well, I know. I understand that unfortunately we're studying PHP, but hopefully if we keep a smile on our face and a song in our heart, we'll be able to make it through the class. So, how's assignment 1 going?
I need to upload it.
You need to upload it. Okay.
I finished it, but I need to document it, but also the documentation is, says that students cannot access the file.
Who couldn't access the file?
So if you go into assignments and on assignment 1, and it has like a link to like how to document PHP, and if you click on it, it says you cannot access this document.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, if you click on if I click on documentation standards, it doesn't work. Yeah, it does not either.
I don't understand why it would not let you do it when it lets me do it.
Try the US students.
No, we're not in the US students. I don't know how this happened.
Maybe the module itself isn't public?
Yeah, it says access denied, you don't have access to PHP.
But it's published. Published. I hate Canvas.
Don't we all?
I mean, probably.
Yeah, that's what I see.
Well, it was the same problem as with the starter files, right?
Can you get it to it through student reference material?
Yes, but then there's a link at the bottom for example code, and that also gives access denied.
Send me an email about it.
Okay.
I don't know what happened. All of this work last semester.
Does that mean there's an expiry?
It's documentation standards for the wrong course.
What? No, come on. Don't tell me that.
In not that one, the one in assignments, that's why it's not available, because we're not in that course.
But it's under pages.
Yeah, so that's the wrong documentation standards file. So if you go to assignments and you hover over the link, it's not course 121476, it's 107912.
107912.
So what does that example code from then?
That might have been the precursor course.
Oh, wait.
Well, we found out some interesting things. Send me an email about it, someone. I'll see if I can't sort it out. I hate Canvas even more than PHP, if you can imagine. Alright. Just hate everything. Everything is hatred.
What's a Monday?
Yeah.
It went
How long did it spend on it?
like 7 hours.
I was in line, just mine, so 40.
No, I spent a good 12 hours.
So, reminding myself where we were, we had talked about arrays, we had talked about superglobals, strings, we did that. JSON, okay.
For some reason, it's the only one sorting method, the original calling one.
So, okay, we'll start here. So, thank you. Shh. Thank you. So, last week in class, we used the get superglobal in order to acquire user input from the client, integrate those the values in there as values in our code so that our code can do something with it. I'd like to, at this point, run through the rest of the superglobal arrays in PHP as kind of introductory knowledge, and then I think the best use of our time today is to do some more examples. This will be primarily a trying stuff out class. Sound good? Alright, so get we already know about. That is where get parameters are stored. Post, you may assume, is where post parameters are stored. It's going to be very important. It's increasingly important for you to know the difference between get and post. Alright? Who can tell me the difference between get and post? Okay. Another question first. I realize it's a Monday. Get and post are what? What category of thing?
Methods of sending packets?
Methods of sending packets, that's what you were going to say?
Yeah, packets.
Yes. So they are HTTP request methods. Now, it's important to understand get and post packets have the same form, they have the same protocol. The only thing that's different is there's a variable in the header saying this is a get or this is a post. Right? It is possible, though perhaps not recommended in all circumstances, to include post parameters in a get request or to include get parameters in a post request. The presence or non-presence of get and post parameters actually has nothing to do with the declared method type of the transaction. They are not constrained in any way. That being said, all of this is information for the server. If the incoming request is a get request, then whoever programs the server might think, oh, well, you know, there's a good possibility I have data coming in through get parameters then, right? But it turns out that each of these parameters each of these request methods has a particular semantic interpretation when it comes to the types of requests that, of the server that we're making. So it's like, what kind of operation am I calling for? Different request methods call for different sorts of operations. At this point, we all, is there anybody here who's not doing databases? Pretty much everybody is? This is good. If you have done databases, that also counts. What are our CRUD operations? Create.
Read, update, delete.
Create, read, update, and destroy. So, each of these request methods, or each of these operations, has a corresponding HTTP request method. One of these is get. Does anybody care to guess which one? That's right. When we get information, we are reading it. How about post?
Probably update.
Update? Well, post is actually something which has entered the internet vernacular. What do I do when I post to InstaSlam?
You create something, create a post.
You create a post. So, posting, like that's the origin of the term, right? When you post something on social media, 9 times out of 9, the actual request method of the HTTP packet doing so will be post. The actual name derives from the concept of postage, right? I'm posting a letter, right? So far as it goes. I'll give you the other ones. Update, for some reason, is put, and destroy is delete. This is also sometimes called delete. So you can see that in that case it's the same on either side. So, this is an interesting, this calls for some interesting little edge cases though. Of get and post, which one do we use to send vulnerable information?
Post,
Why?
because the parameters are hidden in the encrypted part of the packet.
Precisely so. When we send important, secure information, we send it by post, because the post parameters are encrypted, but get parameters are not encrypted. They are included in the URL and viewable to any network node that the packet transfers through. So, let me ask you a question. When you are performing a login, you're using a post method, right? You're sending post parameters. Yes? Are you creating anything?
Session.
Well, we're going to get to that actually. The way that I recommend people do that is actually to create the session immediately when an unvalidated user connects, they get a session, and then when you log in, you validate an existing session rather than creating the session at that time. That's my recommended way of going about things. That's how you end up with things like you can fill up your Amazon shopping cart and then log in as a step during the checkout process. Technically, it's a little bit more secure and less vulnerable to session hijacking and that sort of thing, because the amount of time that you spend in the critical I am logged in period of, is short comparatively. It presents less attack space, right? But anyway, yes. So, but semantically, if we're logging in, are we creating an entry in the database? Probably not. It's theoretically possible that the database is keeping track of who logs in when, right? It keeps some kind of log of this type of information, right? But in terms of like the kind of, this is a community college level of analysis, right? We're not creating a new set of credentials when we're using them to log in. We are querying an existing set of the credentials table in order to see if a username password combination is in there, right? This means that really, if you were to analyze it semantically, a login request would be a read operation, therefore should have a get parameter, or it should be a get method. It should be a get request. But security concerns trump the semantic use of method types, right? Fundamentally, all that you are doing at a fundamental level is you are assigning a string to a value in the header. That's what you're doing by setting the method. Everything else is, I am reading that to determine something, right? It's similar to the concept of how file extensions don't really exist, right? Man, I said that in another class, and that started like a whole half-hour tangent, which was actually fairly controversial. Hopefully you guys can take me at my word for that one, but you guys know what I mean by file extensions, yeah? They don't exist, right? Most people think that like the extension on a file is some kind of like indelible print that, you know, the computer has put on the file. It's like, this is a .docx file and nobody can say otherwise or change that fact in any way. Well, no. You guys want to know what a docx file actually is? It is XML which has been zipped. You can actually unzip a docx file if you change the file extension to zip. You can get you can get the file system. However you unzip your files, you can unzip the Word document, and then it's just XML. So yeah, file extensions don't exist. Method types don't really exist either. They're just characters being passed around to tell people how to use things, which is the exact same as what a file extension is. It's like, it doesn't, when I say it doesn't exist, it's not like it's fictitious, right? They do exist in that sense. When I say it doesn't exist, I mean it's without any substance, right? It's insubstantial as a concept, right? Anyway, so get and post. Before, you had the luxury of not having to worry about this too much. Now that you are all server programmers, you very much have to worry about these sorts of things. So, request contains both get and post data, as well as data from cookies. Don't worry about cookies too much. We'll talk about those later in the course. But basically, request pulls in all inputs, right? Generally speaking, use of it is optional and perhaps not even recommended, because you should know what method the data was sent with, right? Server holds all kinds of information about the server itself. What are my various network connection information pieces, right? Various addresses for things. What's the version of PHP I'm running? A couple of other things that we will get to later in the course, though, like what the URL of the incoming request is. Once we've learned how to decouple that from the file system, the URL can actually hold data in the same way that a GET request can. But we need to read the server superglobal to get there. Session, this is kind of like a preview of the course, actually. Every week or two we'll be having a new superglobal enter our lives. The session superglobal is basically the purpose of it. You dump information into it as part of the session, and when a request reestablishes an existing session, the data which has been stored here by you is persistent. And that's basically all that a session actually is it's a persistent, it's some small amount of persistent storage between PHP calls to the same script from the same computer. That's what a session is. But don't worry, we've got like a whole week or two to talk about sessions. Cookies. Does anybody know what a cookie is? Not that kind of cookie. We all know what that kind of cookie is. So, a cookie, and most of you will know this, a cookie is a little piece of information which has been left on your computer, right? When PHP scripts, such as the ones that we're writing, send responses back to clients, they sometimes attach cookies. The cookie is for storage in the browser's local storage area, right? It gets saved either to the RAM or to the ROM for the browser. The browser automatically sends all cookies applying to the domain that you're trying to connect to anytime it sends a request. So if you have, if you have a client that has picked up 5 cookies from a particular website, all 5 of those cookies are sent again when anytime the client sends a new packet to the server, right? One of these is a cryptographically secure identification string. That's how sessions are maintained. Sessions are maintained with cookies. Cookies are actually not that useful sort of for their own sake. What they're usually used for is to pass session keys, session IDs around, and other sorts of IDs like advertiser IDs and that sort of thing. We'll talk about it. ENV stores data related to environment variables. Basically, don't worry about this unless you are either into server configuration or Linux in a big way. When it says environment variables, it basically means bash environment variables, which it's not this. Don't worry about it for this course. Just it's there so you know it's there. And if you're a Linux person, maybe you have some concept of what that means. But if you don't worry, and then go take tools and practices as an elective. Okay? How many people are planning on taking tools and practices? Good. I'm disappointed it's not all of you. All right. It's okay. I just have to sell it harder, right? Yes. Okay. So data validation, we kind of already talked about this to a great extent. All right. Let's do some actual gosh darn code examples, shall we? Please load XAMPP and your code editor of choice. All right. Assignment 1's due this weekend, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You guys will find this helpful then. Start your servers.
Oh, I got a question. Since a lot of this course is about like checking user inputs and getting stuff back from the server, are we ever going to get into regex?
I wish.
Oh.
The historical position that has been taken on regular expressions in this class is that they are forbidden knowledge, and that if anybody basically anybody who uses regular expressions is getting AI to generate regular expressions for them. Which that's like the historical perspective, and it is true. Like you should not use regular expressions unless you know how to use them, right? Because you shouldn't run code you can't understand, and code like regular expressions are programs. They're just not quite the type of program that we know and love from this. They actually follow a model of computation called cellular automata. But I don't know if I care that much about it. I try to write my my questions so that they can't easily be solved by regular expressions. You know?
So that brings me to my follow-up question. And the fate of my free time and my assignment weighs on your answer.
Okay,
I used regex for input validation. I did the sanitized special characters thing, and then took that input, and then ran it through regex for like, if it falls under this,
Like
then
if-
this happened.
if it's got X character in it, or if it's not composed of the 3 characters that are supposed to be in
Yeah,
it.
like I have a regex block for the marching ants question that says like, if this input contains only R, X, or V,
Yeah,
then it's allowed to be passed forward, otherwise get out of here. So like, am I allowed to do that?
all right. Let me ask you a counter question.
Okay.
How did you learn about regular expressions?
So, my partner has done a PHP course when he was doing college, and he saw how I was doing input validation. He's like, you gotta learn about this. So
Yeah.
he took me to regex101.com and
Oh.
walked me through the various operators for using it.
Then I personally give my sanction to you for your assignment. You may use regular expressions.
Would you like me
Because
to-
someone actually showed you how to do it. Yeah, you know, if you want, you can put in the
Yeah,
comments.
I'll put a comment explaining like each block of what the regex is.
That would be perfect, yes. So I'd just like to revisit this, all right? AI can be used for basic check tasks such as error checking, code analysis, comment, grammar checking, but must not contribute to content development. So this is what you may do with respect to regular expressions. It is I encourage everyone to go learn about them. All right? You can even have the AI give you instructions on how to learn about them. But the regular expression itself should be written by you. That is a test of your understanding to see if you know what you're talking about. If you write your own regular expression, it's good. If you have it generated, that's bad. For this one, because this is a level 2. Okay? I highly encourage regular expressions. I don't have time to talk about them at the moment. There's a bit of talk about them in tools and practices. But you know, even there, it's not really given the amount of depth that it really needs. Like, if I were to teach regular expressions properly, I'd take 2 or 3 weeks to do it. But they're extremely useful.
Though they do look like gibberish if you don't know.
Oh, I mean, but you have to understand that, like, to a non-programmer, every single thing we do looks like gibberish.
That's
So, okay, so, very good. Any other questions while I'm on the answering questions train? Okay, all right. So, so my goal here is to do a back to front, up, down, left, right, and sideways. Let's write a simple web page that sends information to the server processes it, and then the website receives and processes it back and shows it to the user. Okay? Sound good? All right. Just because this is the type of thing that you often do for examples in class, let's do the Fibonacci sequence. Aha! Oh, all right. You just asked the right question. So, the Fibonacci sequence is a famous mathematical sequence composed as follows. The first 2 numbers in the sequence are both 1s. It also works if you include 0, 1. Actually, yeah, let's do that version. There you go. The first 2 numbers are 0 and 1. Every subsequent number is the sum of the previous 2 numbers. So, what's the sum of 0 and 1?
1.
Boop. What's the sum of 1 and 1? 1 and 2? 3 and 2? 3 and 5? Dot, dot, dot. The Fibonacci sequence has a Wikipedia page. It's really cool. Right? Something, something, the golden ratio, something, something, Leonardo da Vinci, not DiCaprio. Yes, it's like old stuff, the Fibonacci sequence. It's cool. It's cool math. So, basically, let's write a website that takes from a humble web form 2 inputs. Well, actually, you only need 1 input. How many Fibonacci numbers are we going to generate? And then it generates the list for you and returns it to you. Does that sound good? Sound like fun?
No.
Well, we're going to do it anyway. So, first, we need a website. In this class, we will elide the usual niceties. This is like my version of what bare bones HTML looks like, although technically not even that is necessary. So, I've had people sometimes comment about this class that they didn't really truly understand web forms until we started doing them in PHP. And that's true, because you've only so far seen half of the equation, right? So let's make a nice little web form. Form. Action. We shall set it to fib.php. I'm going to save this before I go any further, in case my computer craps out because it's Windows. Gotta get that big against Windows in there. Windows, you suck. 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 Alright, this is let's just call it fib.html. There, now I've got my syntax highlighting. Yay! So, end form. The form should end. Alright, now, we need to take, number 1, an integer, and number 2, need a button to submit the form. We're going to do as absolute little JavaScript as possible here in this class, which means we're going to be relying pretty heavily on forms to generate the request packets, rather than doing them with AJAX queries and that sort of thing. Okay? Make sense? So, inputs. Type is equal to text. Name is equal to n. Input type is equal to submit. Value is equal to submit. There we go. So far, so good. Now, although we've just written an HTML file, please make sure that you're accessing it through localhost and not just double-clicking on the thing and opening it that way. Otherwise, you won't be able to send packets to PHP scripts. Okay? So, save. Localhost, 1080, / I put it in 2025-09-22. There we go. fib.html. There we go. Our nice little web form. So far, so good. Everybody got that? Yeah, good. Okay. Now, the next thing to do, fib.php does not exist. if we click the button right there, object is not found. This is of course true. So the next thing we need to do is to write fib.php. File, new, save as fib.php. There we go. Now, we must take the parameter and we must first ensure that we are reading things correctly, right? The first and most difficult part for actually like a surprisingly high barrier to actually getting any programming work done is just getting the scripts talking to each other. That's why my personal recommendation, every single time you create a new PHP script, until you're comfortable with it, start it as a hello world. Just see if you can get something to show. Okay? Make sense? Good. So, PHP, echo, this worked. Save. Now, doesn't matter what I enter, if I click submit, it worked. Hooray. Did everybody get that far? Okay, good. Now we get to do things that are a little bit more interesting. So, we need to read the parameter being sent from the client. A good little trick is this. In order to work with the data, you must first find the data. So in this case, our data is located in the get superglobal, right? But what if I had done this? Method is equal to post. In that case, I don't want to translate it to Arabic. That's a little racist, actually, considering I just entered ASDF. Good grief, Google. Sort yourself out. There we go. All right. You'll notice, well, first of all, I'm not sending anything. Let's go back to the form. There we go. Submit this again. There we go. This save, come on. Save. There we go. Something else. It's still sending it as a get parameter.
You have to reload the cache or
Maybe. Let's see. Sometimes that happens. Oh, that's not a thing. Yeah, there you go. That was the issue. So, one thing that you can get caught on, which just happened to me, let me explain what happened just there. Pardon me. This is a bit different, I think, from working with files in local mode, which is what you folks have been doing with JavaScript so far, right? Well, I mean, in the JavaScript class, you wouldn't have run into this issue that we are now running into, right? One of the things that the browser will do in order to save memory and save network traffic is to cache results of previous network accesses. This means that it has saved a copy of your client-side code locally and referring to that instead of the new version. This can be somewhat troublesome. It's kind of difficult to predict when it's going to do it and when it isn't. But basically, if you leave the web page like sit long enough, it just seems that makes it happen. But basically, what it's done is it's saved a copy of the HTML that we've modified. It's using the old copy rather than the new copy, which means that the changes you're making here basically don't show up there, right? The way to fix it, try closing the browser tab, re-accessing the same web page from a new tab. If that doesn't work, try killing the browser window itself. Maybe try it in another alternative browser, Firefox or, Edge. Something like that. And that will hopefully do it. Your method of last resort is to go in manually and delete all cookies and clear cache. That's that option. You can also do that. That will also fix the problem. In our case, we were fortunate. All I had to do was load a new tab. Okay? Sound good? All right. So, you may note there is no get parameter. If I look at the contents of post, there she is, right there, in post instead. So this little code snippet is extremely useful to show you where your data actually came in through, which is important because you need to know that in order to process the data. Okay? There is one thing that I would like to make special note of. This key here, N. Where did I select that? Someone else.
Set in the HTML form itself.
Set in the HTML form itself. Let's take a look. There it is. Name is N. So that is very important to realize. The name is not arbitrary. We have ourselves selected it, right? We set the name that is being sent to the server. Make sense? And while we're here, I'll show you another little trick. Did you know that there's type hidden? Have you ever wondered what it could be used for? Bonus data. Value equals so sneaky. Oh, is it? Have you done the same thing again, you stupid machine? Yep, it did the same thing again. So you should be aware of hidden form elements because anybody with any knowledge of the inspector pane can unhide them, right? That's just an HTML attribute. You can, in the browser, change it to be a text field or anything like that. So this is not really hiding anything from the client. You should not view this as hiding something from the client. But you are hiding something from normies, right? Somebody who doesn't know how to access the inspector pane or what the heck it's for will not know how to uncover a hidden text field. It's a way of sending some additional data or parameters through to the server. Does that make sense? another way you can do this, sometimes this works, sometimes this doesn't. I'll try it out. That also works. So note, I have included a query string on the action itself. By including the query string, I am in fact sending regular old standard run-of-the-mill get parameters in addition to the post parameters which are being sent from the form elements. Right? So this is what I'm saying when I'm saying, get post, yeah, okay. I just sent get parameters via post request, and I didn't break the internet. Right? So, does that make sense? Everything's a little bit more flexible than we thought it was? It's rare that that's the case in computing, right? So, does that make sense? All good? All right, let's continue with the problem then. So, the thing that we are wanting to do is to take n and assume that is the number of Fibonacci terms we wish to generate. Now, what do we have to do before we start generating a sequence of numbers from this thing?
We have to sanitize it because we don't trust the client.
We have to sanitize it because we don't trust the client. Additionally, is that a number?
No.
That is not a number. If we don't protect against things that aren't numbers, we end up in a world of pain. All right? So, just so you know, one of the things that I take marks off on assignments for that I always hear back from people like afterwards is like, oh, I got marks taken off. Why? It's like, well, because if I send wrong data into your PHP script, it breaks. You're supposed to be filtering, you're supposed to be validating. If I can break it this easily, then it wasn't worth full marks. And that's how that works. So, filter input. Filter input. The first parameter is where we are drawing the data from. Input underscore post in this case. Next, we need, expressed as a string, the variable name. In this case, it's n. Third, we need the type of filter. In this case, what would it be?
Filter sanitize number int.
That's a good guess, but no.
Filter validate int.
There we go. Filter validate int. So, recall that filter validate int may return a null or a false in addition to an integer. Can anybody remind us, when does filter input produce a null value?
The value that you receive is not a number.
No, that's false. That's good though. No? I mean, 0 might be a valid number in this case, right?
And then if you give it white space.
Empty.
White space would show up as a false because it would fail to validate as an integer.
And there's no value for it, no key.
That's it. When you don't send the key at all. When you haven't even sent n. If n is not contained in the superglobal, you get null. So, a value for n. If n is triple equals to false, echo, I need an strong integer n strong value for n. Else, well, there's actually one more thing. What is the domain of the integers? Over what range do the integers vary? Positive, what? What's the maximum integer?
2 digit.
Well, yes, if you're, yeah, but like, let's say in hypothetical math terms, integers as a mathematical set, what's the maximum integer? Oh, come on. Infinity, yes, the largest integer is infinity. What's the smallest integer? Negative infinity. How do you do, like you can imagine an infinite sequence that goes to positive infinity elements. Is there such a thing as negative infinity elements in a sequence? Nope. In fact, because what we're asking for here is the number of things in a thing, does it make sense for this value to be negative? It does not. It can be 0, though. We can return an empty data structure. Echo this, your number is negative, sir / madam. Else. Now we do the thing. So this is quite a lot in terms of error checking, right? This is, what are we at to, like 10 lines of code on error checking? Let me show you a more compact form for it. Generally, a sort of a big part of the annoyance of doing this is that now, like, your main algorithm is twice indented. Unless you know, maybe you encapsulate that as a function up earlier. Maybe that's a thing you do. That would be fine. But you know, it's just kind of an annoying way to write this. So we have the exit statement. As an alternative, you can say, wow, what the heck is going on? Look at the keyboard when you type, Professor Moore. If n is equal to null, or n is equal to false, or n is less than 0. These are all of our error conditions. There we go. Right? Echo, an error occurred, and then a little bit of magic. Exit 0. So the exit keyword, you can think of it as being basically a return statement, but for a whole file, right? Normally, we only use return statements within the context of a function or method, right? We are not in a function or a method, so we cannot use the return statement. But the exit statement allows us to terminate this procedure, right? We exit the script. Does that make sense? So far, so good? So, does anybody care to guess what 0 means? Why can't we just exit? Why do we have to give a number?
It needs to return a number, or it needs a parameter number.
It needs a parameter number, yes, but why?
I
Yes.
guess there's different reasons, or it's used to indicate later in the program why it exited. Like you can kind of set something to it.
This is you're like 87.3% to the correct answer,
Yeah.
right? So it's not giving a status code to itself, it's giving a status code to the shell environment that's running this script, right? Which is not like PHP the way we think about it. It's internal server stuff, right? So, this comes down to a concept which you will learn about in Tools and Practices when you take it. When you have programs running inside of a shell, they are sending signals back and forth to each other. One of the signals, like it's one of these baked-in kind of signals, is the status code, the return status of the program. If any of you had ever done C programming, you would know that the type of the main function in C is integer, right? In Java, what's the return type of your main method?
Void.
Public isn't,
Void.
one of those is a data type.
Void.
Void, right? In Java, your main method doesn't return anything, right? It's void. In C, your main method returns an integer. The integer it returns is the exit status of the program. Exit status indicates, well, lots of different things based on the program that is returning, right? Most of the time, these are error codes. Way back in the 80s, you would have had gigantic, like, tomes of desk reference that would give you what the meaning of each status code returned from a program is, right? These days, you just, you look that up online. But the one thing which is true across, like, there are a few things that are generally agreed upon with status codes, but the one thing that is agreed upon is that 0 means exited normally. No special messages, right? So the reason that we say exit 0 is a little bit curious then. Because in a sense, we are exiting on an error, right? We failed the validation check, so why are we telling the operating system there's no problem?
Because it wasn't an error with our code, it was just an error with the user input.
That's right. It's the user that's wrong, not us, right? But actually, right? Like, when you set a non-zero value for the exit status, you are saying my program worked up somehow, right? I got into an unexpected state with the program and an error occurred. In this program, if we hit this echo statement, no problem has occurred in our PHP script. Our script is behaving the way it's supposed to behave by rejecting bad input. But that doesn't mean that the script itself has exited incorrectly, right? It's like, you know, if this thing is like a police constable, and the police constable sees some hooligan, some teenager with a spray can who's about to spray on a brick wall, and he's like, oi, 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 you know, and the teenager's like, and runs away. You know, that's not an error that's not an error on the part of the police, right? Even though the hooligan, the hooligan process would have had an error because it failed to complete the operation of spray painting the wall, but the police officer's program exited normally. Does that make sense? Maybe that doesn't make sense. But all right. Anyway, you might agree that this is a more compact and easy to understand form, and past this point in the program, you can be assured that none of these things are the case. Make sense? So we can just write the code. We've taken quite a long time to get around to actually writing the Fibonacci sequence. So, the Fibonacci sequence. For I is equal to 0, I is less than n. I guess it would be less than or equal to n. There we go. No, it wouldn't. That's wrong. There we go. There we go. Basically, we want to make an array of Fibonacci values and push additional ones onto it. Array is empty. Array underscore push onto array, whatever the new value is. Now the value is calculated slightly differently. It requires a little bit of code. If we are here, there are no numbers coming before, so we can't sum any, and our value is 0. Right? If we are here, our value is just 1. But here, we can start doing the normal process. So, if I is equal to 0, I'm going to do the compact thing. Val is equal to 0. Else if I is equal to 1, val is equal to 1, else val is equal to val at I minus 1 plus val at I minus 2. There we go. I guess you could rewrite this as if I is less than or equal to 1, val is equal to I. That works a bit more compactly. Right? This is the thing we were talking about before. Each number is the one that came before it, and the one that came before that summed together. Right? But don't take my word for it. In order to actually view the data, though, we need to send the data. Echo array. What critical mistake am I making?
You want to include in, you have to, yeah.
That's right. Let's remind ourselves what we get.
Also, do we need a semicolon when we declare the array?
Unexpected 4. Yes, semicolon, yes. There we go. An error occurred. Well, yes, of course it did.
I also found a very helpful thing when I was doing Design 1 where I could use var dump to find out like the contents of the array as I was going through the program.
Var dump?
Yeah.
That's a good one too, yeah. 10. See? Array, princess array. JSON encode. There we go. Ooh. Bum, bum, ba-dum, boom. Let's see here.
Should it not just be val of $I plus?
Oh! That'll do it, right there. I had val here instead of array. Now, okay. Alright. Okay. Pump the brakes. Because that's the type of error that really just shouldn't happen. You know? Like, look at this. I make an innocent mistake in front of a class of over 30 people. This should be array, not val, right? Value is, that's the value I'm intending to push on the array, but I'm trying to read the array, at least I thought I was, right? Would Java let this kind of nonsense go through? Array access of a thing that's just a variable? I don't think so. It just gives you 0. What? Array access of just an integer gives you 0. So yeah, PHP is not your friend. Alright? PHP is at best your frenemy, and at worst, your mortal enemy. Alright? Keep your friends close and PHP closer. If you wonder why people don't like PHP, that's the reason people don't like it. Like that and associated sorts of things. So, hey, look, we got numbers. So a fun thing about the Fibonacci sequence is that it gets like really, really big when numbers get very large.
Well, as it approaches infinity, it basically matches the golden ratio.
Yes. But like, you can see that the Fibonacci number, like 100, the 100th Fibonacci number is 2.1 e to the times 10 to the power of 20, which is pretty big, pretty dang big, you know? So it's like, it's definitely one of these things that just shoots off to infinity. So, there we go. All right, we did it. Yay! Thank you for the slow clap, whoever that was. Or maybe someone's just cracking their knuckles. All right. Good. So, how many people got that working? How many people failed to get that working? I will come and I will take a look at people's computers for a quick moment. And then we'll do another example, probably involving JSON. By the way, if there's anybody in the room whose name is Jason, I'm really sorry for the program that he chose. Anyone else?
This is the same thing. 1 minus 1.
Oh. Looks like you're sending it via get.
Oh.
So if you change that to input get, it should work. You're very welcome.
Oh,
A really, really good, a really, really big number. It just refused to bring it down.
Whoa. What? Okay, great. You're getting the whole program. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh. Let me check the top note.
Check here in the rest.
Try it now. Yeah. You're at least not getting the whole program done. You need to insert a semicolon. Anyone else? Yes?
Let's have one more.
Uh-oh.
So,
Oh, you did get one number though. That's correct. But if you enter 10, you get 10. Because this is the number of numbers. Right? Oh, you all get 0.
I was just
Ah, good. Who else? Where were we? Anyone? Everyone good? All right. Sounds good. So, so this is something that you're not required to do in assignment 2, but you will be required to do in assignment, off by one error. This is not something you will be required to do in assignment 1, but you will be required to do in assignment 2. JSON is very often the medium of exchange of information, particularly in the API-driven internet that we now live in, right? We have given JSON, but we have not received JSON. And there are a couple of little tricks about it that you need to know in PHP. So, let's write a program that takes a little JSON and then outputs a very similar JSON. So, let's write a program that does this. It will be a JSON of fruits and quantities of fruit. You know you're in my classroom now. It's my favorite example. You will also specify the name of a fruit as another parameter, and then we will output, basically it'll like increment whichever fruit you selected. Does that make sense? All right, let's do it. New file. Fruit.html. New file. fruit.php. So, here we go. So unfortunately, we're gonna have to do a little smidgen of JavaScript. Sorry guys. I know. I'm just gonna do it in one file though. There we go. I'm gonna do that. There we go. Alright. So, at the moment I'm not particularly concerned with taking the JSON information from the web page. Let's just encode some JSON data in JavaScript, send that to the server. Okay? So, we shall let data equal someone give me a fruit.
Durian.
Pineapple.
Durian. We shall have 5. Someone said pineapple. We shall have 20. Give me a fruit. Kiwi. People really like kiwis. I get kiwi every time. Dragon fruit. 2 more. Oh wait, I forgot the quotes.
Grapefruit.
Grapefruit. One more.
Apple.
Apple. Classic. There we go. So, now, basically this web page is just going to automatically send this to the PHP script as soon as the page is loaded. We're not even going to hook it up to a button. Fetch. Fruit.php. Y'all remember this? So in this case, we don't have to do credentials include because, we don't have to include credentials. Method will be post. So, okay. All right, cats and kittens. There's a reason that I'm sending this via post. Basically, when you're sending JSON, in order for the JSON string to be complete, it has to include a few slightly weird characters. Things like the curly braces, the square braces, the commas, the colons, and perhaps particularly quote characters. Although it can be made to work, it's just generally not a great idea to send JSON in a URL, just for the purposes of like washing your hands after you go to the bathroom type thing. Just don't send special characters in the URL if you can help it, all right? That's what the body is for. So we're going to send it in the body. So method post. Oh man. Content type. Oh no, what is it? It's headers. I'm gonna get this wrong. Colon. Content dash type. I think the quotes actually are unnecessary in JavaScript. Colon x dash www dash URL form encoded. Oh, hey, actually, I could just say, well, I have to show you something else. Yeah, we'll do it this way for now. To type URL and code it. There it is. Maybe?
In your starter code, you used application/x -ww.
Application.
Content type, but then for the part after the colon, it was application slash, and then it was x dash form dash www dash form dash URL encoded.
Thank you. Thank you, kind sir. There we go. All right. And is there anything else? Ah, yes, the body. Can't go anywhere without the body. All right, so the body will need to be included as form data. So we can say data gets, and then, well, actually I already named that data. JSON data. There we go. Data gets JSON data. Now, the problem is that this needs to be, this JSON data right now is in raw data type form, right? It's in direct data form. What we need to do is we need to convert it to string form to send it over the internet, because you can't send raw data over the internet, right? The packets send strings. This is why we spend so much time decoding integers, even the humble integer, right? That comes to us as a string, and it might come to us as a string that doesn't even contain integers. So we have to send everything as characters. Fortunately, in JavaScript, we have JSON dot the worst method ever. Do you guys remember it? Stringify. Yes, I put it on the wrong side though. Stringify. There you go. JSON.stringify. Alright. So,
Do we need the commas separating like method header?
yeah, we certainly will. There we go. I always like to put the commas at the beginning.
And then in your example, you also had like the quotations around the content.
I think that's not necessary. I think that's like an optional but not necessary in JavaScript.
Okay. It was in your code that you wrote.
I mean, I make absolutely no claim that my code is ever correct.
It works though.
Yeah, well, see, that's my standard of working, right? It's like, if it works, it's good, right? Because I'm like kind of fundamentally a mediocre programmer, right? So, there we go. Let's try it. Let's go to fruit.html. There we go. And let's just check to see what the packet looks like. Oh, missing after argument list. Well, that would help. Yeah, missing after argument list. What line? 13. Line 13. Oh, yeah. I need a comma there too. I need a comma right there after fruit.php. Oh, all right. So, no syntax errors. Let's check the network tab. Zoom. Zoom. There we go. Yeah, oh, I hate you, P. Object, huh? but I. Knew JavaScript was a mistake. Alright, are you a string? You are a string. You're not going to let me do it that way. Then you'll let me do it this way. No object. Oh! Let's do it this way. I think I know what the problem was. There we go. So, basically the thing is, I was thinking at the wrong level. Two levels at the same time. I was thinking I would take the whole JSON and like bind that to like one thing. Right now, we're not even to the point where we have to decode this. Let me show you what happens with this in PHP. Let's pull in this bit from here up here. There we go. Fruit.php. Of course, jumping back to JavaScript, the stuff that we're returning will be in response to the fetch request. So you gotta go then response gets response.text, then data go console dot log data. Just want to see the data. There we go. So we've got nothing, nothing. Sure. There we go. So. Try it that way. Just give me a second. Yeah,
I ran it through the chat bot. It says if we're gonna send it as a JSON, we should just send it as content type application/JSON.
yeah, I know, but if we do that, then it's no longer a post parameter, so I can't like wash it through the post parameter interface. It's like a different thing, right? But, alright. We'll try it that way. Application/JSON. Go. Save, let's see what you do with that. Wait a second. Oh. Well, that would be one reason it wasn't working. Try that now. Maybe it will work. Yeah, okay. I just need the thing in PHP to read the method body. Oh yeah. See, this is why I. Yeah. So. I just did it like as a get request. I wonder if that would work. Just give me one moment. Let's see here. Data is equal to plus x. Let's just see if that will work. Don't worry about that. Actually, don't worry about any of this. Don't worry about anything. There we go. Don't worry, be happy. There we go. Let's try that. All of our slashes are scraped, but that's okay. Yeah, actually that worked. Okay. Except since we're writing this for the console, let's put a new line character in there instead of break. There we go. No. Did I say it? Did I modify the wrong one? Yeah, there we go. Try this again. There we go. All right. So, okay. I was trying to do it with a post request, but that got too fancy, it seems. So, the thing I said about not doing this with get, well, that one was easier to get working, so we're going to do that for now. And then we'll come back to post later. So, there we go. So the contents of our get superglobal then, our data thing now contains this string, which is JSON encoded data. All right? What we need to do is to decode it. So, JSON underscore decode. get at data. And let's just, it seems a bit silly, but then encode it to show it again. So JSON decode has a very, very important, very especially important parameter as the second argument. In PHP, we can interpret this object as either an object or an associative array. This is a distinction that JavaScript does not recognize. PHP recognizes it, right? If you interpret it as an associative array, everything we've done so far works. Otherwise, you have to use the little arrow notation to get stuff out of it, right? So, Boolean associative is false. The default setting for JSON decode is object. To set it to associative array, you must provide a truth literal right there. Once we have that, we can work with it as an array. Maybe add something new to it. Like class is almost done equals yes. We can then encode it and send it back to the client. Oh, come on. Wait, did I miss a semicolon somewhere? And header though. Line 10? Oh. There we go. That'll do. Right. So, you'll notice the data that came into the server, all of our fruits, and only all of our fruits, the data coming out of the server, all of our fruits, plus class is almost done, yes. Right? Which means that after we have JSON decoded it, we have it into a form that's workable inside of PHP. We can just use all of our normal mechanisms to modify the data. Does that make sense? So far, so good? All right. So, yeah. There we go. Any questions? No? Okay. So a thing that I said I was going to do, what this was actually going to be, is the, you also send the name of a fruit and it increments that fruit. Oh, actually, before we do that though, what's the one thing we're not doing with this?
We're not validating?
We're not validating, we're not filtering. That's right. So, there are a couple of ways you can do this. One would be to trace through every single element of the JSON that you've just received by hand. This is valid and works. You can write a for each loop to do it. It's not that big a deal. But since that is common functionality, there is a method for it. Filter. You'll notice if you say filter underscore, you get a whole bunch of different filters, right? Notable ones that we haven't talked about yet include filter var and filter var arrays. Filter var array. this one. There we go. So, filter an associative array of values using filter validate star, validation filters, filter sanitize star, sanitization filters, or custom filters. So, filter var array allows you to filter all of the elements in the associative array all at once. However, there's a pretty big limitation. It expects the data to be homogeneous. So, in our case, it'll work because all of our fruits are pointing to integers. So we can just say, this is an array where every value is an integer. Can you validate that for me, please? And it says, yeah, sure, I can do that for you. I can do that for you, boss. And then it doesn't. However, a lot of the time that won't be the case. A lot of the time you'll have a mix, like if you think about regular JSON data, you'll have a mix of numbers and strings and other sorts of things. Yes?
So that array, that value you've added to the end of that array right there with a yes at the end, if that was revalidated, that would not get through with it.
No, but we're adding it post-validation.
Yeah, if we were to validate that, it would be filtering out as bad stuff.
Yeah, this would be filtered out as bad, but since we're adding to it afterwards,
Yeah.
that's all fine. So you'll find that one of the ways that I've written up assignment 2, some of the code in there, which is actually a fairly common pattern, is the JSON that's sending the data back is a little bit more complicated than what we have here. You'll have something that looks something like this. You know, you'll have data, and then you'll have like an error field that will give a description of an error, and then maybe a message field, which might contain like a debug message. And if you take a look at the code in assignment 2, basically what the JSON or what the JavaScript fetch requests are doing, anything received in the message portion of the JSON is echoed immediately to console. Part of the problem with PHP is that there's no good mechanism for even doing a simple print statement debug loop, right? That gives you this. It's my gift to you. All right. So, you know, we'll see this as we go along. But yeah. So that's, we give JSON, we get JSON back, right? Does that make sense? Any questions? All right. Cool. Well, any objections to ending class 3 minutes early? No? Are you sure? Okay. Get out of here.